You ever notice how life loves to play these little tricks on people? One moment you're staring at a dead end, thinking the walls are closing in, thinking you've run out of chances. And then, out of nowhere, a door appears where there wasn't even a wall before. That's the thing about opportunities, they don't arrive politely. They don't knock. They don't send invitations. They sneak up on you in the strangest places, at the strangest times, wrapped in situations you'd never expect. And the funniest part? Your next job, your next breakthrough, your next big step. It's probably hiding in a place you've never even bothered to look. People spend their whole lives trying to plan their future like it's a neat little puzzle they can solve with a straight face and steady hands. They think if they follow the steps, tick the boxes, listen to the experts, their path will unfold perfectly, predictably, politely. But life doesn't care about your plans. Life is messy, chaotic, hilarious in the most inconvenient ways. And the biggest breakthroughs, they never come from those neat, predictable paths people cling to. No, the biggest shifts happen in the unexpected corners, the forgotten alleys, the places you avoid because they don't look like opportunity at first glance. That's the trick. The path that looks wrong, uncomfortable, strange. That's usually the one that changes everything. People get obsessed with what seems safe. They chase the same doors everyone else is chasing, knock on the same walls, follow the same tired trail because it feels familiar. And familiarity is comforting, even when it's killing their potential. They don't realize the universe likes to rewrite the script mid-scene. It likes to take your expectations, crumble them up like a cheap paper prop, and toss them out the window. Because breakthroughs don't happen in safety. They happen in confusion, in surprise, in those moments when you're forced to step somewhere you never expected to stand. Have you noticed how the path you thought you were meant for never quite behaves? It bends, it twists, it cracks open just when you think you've mastered it. And all the while, there's another path forming quietly on the side, a path you didn't choose, didn't even see, because you were too focused on the predictable one. Life hides opportunities in chaos. It places them behind doors that look too old, too strange, too impossible. But that's exactly why they're powerful, because most people won't dare to open them. Most people are too scared of the unknown, too stuck in their routine, too convinced that the expected path is the only one that matters. When everything falls apart, when the job ends, the opportunity dries up. The future suddenly looks foggy. People panic. They think the world is punishing them. They think they've failed. They think the story is over. But maybe it's the start. Maybe the ground had to break so you'd stop walking the wrong way. Maybe the lights went out so you'd see the small door glowing in the corner. Maybe the universe had to throw you off balance so you'd stumble into the direction you were actually meant to go. Breakthroughs don't announce themselves. They don't come wrapped in comfort or stability. They come disguised as loss, as rejection, as endings. Think about it. The biggest moments of change in people's lives rarely come from what they planned. They come from accidents, chance encounters, unexpected twists, a conversation with someone you almost didn't meet, a job offer from a place you never applied to, a skill you never intended to learn, a door that opens after another slammed in your face. That's the funny part. People cry over the closed door while the unlocked one behind them waits patiently. Life loves irony like that. And the truth is, you don't know what's waiting. You don't know where your next step will lead. But that's the beauty. The uncertainty forces you to grow, forces you to adapt, forces you to become someone capable of handling something bigger than what you expected. The predictable path might feel safe, but it won't transform you. The unexpected one will. It will stretch you, challenge you, confuse you, break you a little, but it will lead you somewhere you couldn't even imagine when you were clinging to your old plans. The biggest breakthroughs are hidden in moments that don't feel like breakthroughs at all. They feel like detours, like mistakes, like disappointments. But every detour has direction. Every setback has intention. Every unexpected path has a destination you wouldn't have reached if life had let you stay comfortable. That's the secret people miss. The universe doesn't block your path to punish you. It redirects you to places where your potential isn't just useful, it's undeniable. So if your path suddenly looks unfamiliar, if life pushes you somewhere strange, if the road twists in ways you never planned, maybe that's where the breakthrough is hiding. Maybe the unexpected path is the one that was meant for you all along. People get so attached to the idea of control. They want every step to make sense, every move to fit neatly into their little timeline. They want to know exactly when, where, and how things will unfold. And when life refuses to give them that certainty, they panic, they pull back, they assume something is wrong. But what if the real problem isn't the uncertainty? What if the real problem is their obsession with predictability? Because the world isn't built on straight lines. It's built on twists, surprises, strange turns that no one sees coming. And the funniest part is, those twists usually carry the very thing people are looking for. People think opportunity announces itself loudly, wearing a shiny name tag and waving from across the room. But no, opportunity creeps in quietly. It hides in shadows, in unexpected faces, in strange places people overlook because they don't match the picture in their head. That's how life works. It delivers blessings in disguises so convincing that most people walk right past them. They're too busy searching for what they think their future should look like. They forget that life doesn't follow their imagination. Life prefers irony. It prefers shock. It prefers to hand you something extraordinary in a package you would have sworn wasn't for you. Look at how people chase jobs. They stick to the industries they were told are right, the roles they were trained for, the titles they think make them look important. They don't realize the next chapter might come from a place they never even glanced at, a field they never studied, a city they never planned to visit, a company they didn't even know existed last week. That's what makes life so brilliantly unpredictable. The next job doesn't need your permission to appear. It doesn't need your preparation. Sometimes all it needs is for you to let go of the picture you've been clinging to so tightly. Because when your hands are full of expectations, you can't catch anything new. People think a closed door means defeat. But sometimes a closed door is the only way life can get you moving toward the one that's actually meant for you. That's the hilarious twist. One rejection can reroute your entire destiny. One unexpected layoff can push you into the one place your talent finally shines. One moment of uncertainty can position you right where you were supposed to be all along. But most people don't see it that way. They get stuck in the disappointment. They drown in frustration. They forget to look around and notice the strange, almost suspicious timing of what's happening. And timing is the most interesting part. Because life never moves too early or too late. It moves exactly when it knows you're most likely to ignore it. It loves to slip opportunity into the cracks right after you've given up on your plans. Right when you're tired of waiting. Right when everything looks still. That's when life likes to strike. When you least expect it. When your guard is down. When your old expectations finally loosen their grip. Because that's the moment you're willing to see something different, something unusual, something that wasn't part of the blueprint you drew in your mind. Most people are terrified of stepping into the unknown. They would rather stay stuck in something that drains them than risk stepping into something unfamiliar that might just elevate them. They fear being unprepared, fear not fitting in, fear starting from scratch. But that fear blinds them to the fact that the unknown is where all the magic hides. The predictable is comfortable, but it's dead. The unexpected feels dangerous, but it's alive. It's full of potential, full of possibility, full of strange little clues pointing you toward the place you're meant to be if you just gather the courage to follow them. And the world has a funny way of rewarding those who do. Those who stop forcing things, those who stop clinging to a single version of the future, those who allow themselves to step into unfamiliar territory even if it feels a little absurd at first. Because life doesn't care about what feels logical. It cares about what actually aligns with you, what challenges you, what stretches you into someone capable of more than the limited role you were trying to squeeze into before. The next job might not look like the dream you imagined, but it might be the opportunity that wakes up parts of you you didn't know existed. People forget that growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in the odd, unexpected, awkward spaces where you must adapt, learn, and rebuild. And that's exactly where the next opportunity tends to hide. In the places you ignored, in the directions you avoided, in the possibilities you didn't think were meant for you. Because life is always one step ahead, placing pieces quietly, waiting for the moment you finally stop resisting and notice the strange little opening that's been there the whole time. People walk around acting like they know exactly what they deserve. They convince themselves they're only qualified for certain things, only worthy of certain roles, only capable of what they've already done. They trap themselves in tiny boxes built from old stories, old mistakes, old disappointments. And then they wonder why nothing changes. They never stop to realize that the world is much bigger than their beliefs. That life has this wicked habit of offering you more the moment you stop assuming you deserve less. But most people never dare to think that way. They cling to their limitations like a blanket, even when it suffocates them. It's strange how people underestimate themselves without even noticing. They tell themselves, "I'm not skilled enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not experienced enough." And they worship these excuses as if they're absolute truth. They forget something very important. Opportunities don't always choose the most perfect person. They choose the person who's willing, the person who's ready to grow, the person who's bold enough to step into a role that scares them. But fear is loud. It crawls into people's ears and whispers all the reasons they shouldn't try. So they stay where they are, convinced that anything bigger, anything better, anything more challenging simply isn't meant for them. People don't realize that the world doesn't just reward talent. It rewards courage. The courage to apply for something you think is out of your league. The courage to say yes to something that stretches you. The courage to step into rooms you don't feel qualified for yet. Because that's another thing people forget. You grow into your opportunities. You don't walk into them fully polished, fully prepared, fully perfect. You step in raw, nervous, uncertain, and that discomfort becomes the sharpened edge that carves you into who you're supposed to be. But instead of embracing that discomfort, people run from it. They think the next job must look like their past jobs. They think their future is limited to what they've already done. They underestimate their adaptability, their instincts, their hidden strengths. Life has a way of exposing abilities you didn't even know you had. A role might pull out leadership you never exercised. A challenge might reveal creativity you never explored. A new environment might unlock confidence you didn't know lived inside you. But you'll never see any of that if you keep lowering yourself to the level of your fears. What's amusing is how people become experts at predicting their own failure, even when they've never tested themselves. They imagine the worst outcomes, fantasize about every possible mistake, every criticism, every embarrassment. They create these little horror movies in their heads and then wonder why they're too paralyzed to move. But here's the joke. None of those imagined disasters are real. Not one. They're shadows on the wall, nothing more. And yet people give them power, as if those shadows determine their future. They don't realize that success often belongs to the one who steps forward while everyone else hides behind their imaginary fears. There's a moment quiet, subtle, where a person finally realizes they've been underestimating themselves. It usually happens after something unexpected forces them into a new situation. A shift in life, a rejection, a sudden ending. And once they step into that unfamiliar role, once they navigate those new responsibilities, they look back and laugh at how small they used to think. They realize their limits were never real. They were self-made, self-fed, self-sustained illusions. And the world was always waiting for them to outgrow them. Life doesn't underestimate you. You underestimate yourself. Life keeps creating openings, possibilities, cracks in the routine where new potential can slip through. But you have to be willing to see it. You have to be willing to entertain the idea that you're capable of more than your past suggests. The next job, the next break, the next elevation, it won't always look like something you expected. Sometimes it'll feel too big, too advanced, too different from anything you've ever done. And that feeling is exactly the sign that it might be right for you. People forget that confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build by stepping into what scares you. You don't qualify for the opportunity first. You accept it first, and then you rise to meet it. Maybe the next job isn't just a job. Maybe it's the place where the version of you that you haven't met yet finally comes alive. People cling to the familiar like it's a lifeline. They hold on to routines, workplaces, titles, even when those things drain them, shrink them, dull them. They convince themselves that stability is the same as safety, and safety is the same as success. But there's a strange little twist life likes to throw in sometimes. The thing you're holding on to the tightest is the very thing preventing your rise. People stay in places they've outgrown, stay in roles that no longer challenge them, stay in environments that treat them like background noise, all because the unknown feels too wild, too unpredictable. They don't realize the unknown is where their real growth has been hiding all along. You can see it in their eyes when they talk about their work. The spark fades, the curiosity disappears, the excitement dies. But they keep showing up because they've convinced themselves that this is what being responsible looks like. They don't want to start over. They don't want to risk failing. They don't want to feel lost. So they settle. They settle for the job that barely pays them what they're worth. They settle for a boss who doesn't see them. They settle for tasks that don't ignite them in the slightest. And they call it stability. They call it practical. But deep down, there's a whisper telling them it's not where they belong. Life has a strange way of increasing the volume of that whisper. It starts subtly, a little dissatisfaction here, a little boredom there, a nagging sense that nothing is moving. And when people ignore it, life pushes harder. The workplace becomes unbearable. The opportunities dry up. The energy drains faster. It feels like everything is falling apart. But what's really happening is everything is being stripped away so you'll stop pretending you're meant to stay there. Because sometimes the only way to get you to move is to make staying impossible. People misunderstand discomfort. They see it as a sign of failure, as a sign something is wrong. But discomfort is often the first sign of transformation. It's life tapping you on the shoulder, reminding you that you're capable of more than the small space you're trying to squeeze yourself into. And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. That restless feeling in your chest, that frustration you can't explain, that sudden urge to break free from the routine, that's not impatience. That's your potential trying to get out. What makes it almost amusing is how people interpret this shift. They think they're losing control, losing direction, losing clarity. But maybe they're exactly where they need to be. Maybe the confusion is the bridge between who they are and who they're meant to become. Maybe the frustration is the fuel that will push them towards something bigger. People don't grow when things are comfortable, predictable, peaceful. They grow when life throws them into a space where they have no choice but to rise. And then there's the moment when life offers the escape, an unexpected opportunity, a message, a conversation, a recommendation, a chance encounter. Something small, random, almost laughable. And suddenly, it doesn't feel like coincidence anymore. It feels like timing. It feels like the universe saying, "You didn't move, so I moved things for you." But here's the trick. Most people ignore that chance because it doesn't look like what they imagined. It comes disguised, humble, strange. It doesn't match their expectations, so they dismiss it. They miss the door that was cracked open just for them. But the world doesn't run out of opportunities. It simply waits for you to stop holding on to what no longer fits. The moment you loosen your grip, even a little, life rushes in with something new, something better, something aligned. People think the next job will come from a job board, a resume, an application. Sometimes it does. But often, it comes from chaos, from endings, from discomfort, from a place you never planned to look. Because the universe loves rearranging your life in ways that force you into the position you were always meant for. People rarely realize they've outgrown a place until they leave it. Only then do they feel the air return to their lungs. Only then do they recognize how small they were becoming. Only then do they understand that the discomfort wasn't punishment, it was direction. And leaving that old space, stepping into something unknown, unpredictable, unfamiliar, that's where they rediscover the version of themselves they abandoned long ago. Maybe the next job isn't just a step forward. Maybe it's the escape route life has been trying to hand you while you kept pretending you were comfortable in a place that never deserved you in the first place. People are always in such a hurry to label their experiences as good or bad, lucky or unlucky, progress or failure. They rush to judge every moment before it has time to reveal what it's actually doing for them. They see a delay and call it rejection. They see silence and call it abandonment. They see an unexpected shift and call it misfortune. They never stop to consider that maybe life is rearranging things behind the scenes in ways they can't understand yet. They don't realize that the timing they're so frustrated with might be the very thing protecting them, positioning them, preparing them for something far bigger than what they're begging for. It's interesting how people treat time like an enemy. They feel behind, cheated, forgotten. They think everyone else is ahead, everyone else is winning, everyone else is moving while they're stuck in the same place. They don't realize that everyone's life moves on a different clock, and some clocks are designed to explode into success all at once. But they stare at the hands on their own clock, panicking because it doesn't move the way they want it to. They don't know that certain doors only open at very specific moments. Not earlier, not later. And if they had forced their way through too soon, they would have collapsed under the weight of what they weren't ready to carry. That's the part that makes it almost funny how people think they're ready long before they actually are. They think they can handle the dream, the responsibility, the opportunity, just because they want it. But wanting something doesn't mean you're prepared for it. Life sees the blind spots you ignore. It sees the habits you haven't broken yet, the confidence you haven't built, the skills you haven't sharpened. And instead of handing you the big moment too early and watching you crumble, It puts you through pressure, silence, waiting, discomfort. Because pressure builds capacity, silence sharpens intuition, waiting strengthens character, and discomfort breaks complacency. People complain about the storm without noticing what it's strengthening inside them. They curse the delays without realizing those delays are shaping them into someone who can walk into a bigger space without shrinking. They think the job they didn't get was a failure, but maybe it was a shield. They think the opportunity that slipped away was punishment, but maybe it was redirection. They think the slow season means they're being ignored, but maybe it means they're being refined. There's always a purpose hiding beneath the timing people fight against. What they forget is how quickly everything can change when the time is right. One phone call, one message, one unexpected introduction, one chance meeting in a place they didn't even want to go. Life doesn't need years to shift. It needs one moment. And that moment usually arrives after a long stretch of waiting that felt pointless. It's usually after the frustration peaks, after the doubt creeps in, after they start questioning whether anything is moving at all. That's when life likes to twist the scene. Just when they think nothing is happening, everything is happening at once behind the curtain. The next job, the next opportunity, the next breakthrough, it might come faster than they ever imagined, but it won't come a second before they're ready. And that readiness isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about finally growing into the version of themselves capable of sustaining what they've been praying for. Life never withholds without purpose. It synchronizes. It prepares. It ensures that when the opportunity arrives, you won't sabotage it with old fears, old habits, old insecurities. You'll step into it with clarity you didn't have months ago, courage you didn't have years ago, and strength you didn't even know you were building. People like to say timing is everything, but they don't actually trust it. They fight it, question it, resent it. But timing is the quiet architect behind every major turning point in their lives. It decides when to close doors, when to open new ones, when to shake the floor beneath them, when to hold them still until they finally learn what they need to learn. And the moment they're aligned, the moment their character catches up with their ambition, the moment their growth matches the opportunity, that's when everything snaps into place. Maybe the waiting isn't wasting. Maybe the silence isn't empty. Maybe the timing that frustrates them is the exact timing that's going to elevate them into a job they never even imagined would be theirs. People chase certainty like it's oxygen. They want to know exactly what's coming, exactly where they're going, exactly how everything will unfold. They grip the illusion of control so tightly that they don't notice how much possibility slips right through their fingers. Because while they're busy trying to predict every step, life is whispering something entirely different. Times be open, asterisk, be open to the unexpected, the unusual, the unplanned, the unfamiliar. But people don't like unfamiliar. It makes them nervous. It makes them question themselves. It makes them feel like they're walking on a tightrope without a safety net. And yet, that's exactly where life hides its most brilliant surprises. People are so quick to assume they know what's best for them. They create these strict little maps in their heads, this job, this field, this role, this city, and they follow it like a rule book. But life doesn't follow their rule book. It doesn't obey their expectations. It doesn't care about the narrow little path they've drawn for themselves. It loves to nudge them off that path, push them sideways, drop them into situations that look nothing like the plan. And at first, they panic. They resist. They cling to the familiar because the familiar feels safe, even when it's boring them to death. But the unfamiliar, that's where everything shifts. That's where they meet people they never imagined meeting. where they discover skills they never knew they had, where they stumble into opportunities that look strange at first glance, but end up fitting them better than anything they'd planned. The world is too big to fit inside their expectations, too unpredictable, too wild, too clever. And when it wants to give them something extraordinary, it rarely comes wrapped in a package they recognize. What's amusing is how people walk right past opportunities because they don't look the way they imagined. They dismiss something new because it feels uncomfortable. They ignore a possibility because it doesn't match the picture in their head. They say no to things that could transform their entire life simply because the transformation doesn't look familiar. They don't realize that the unfamiliar is supposed to feel strange. That's the sign it's new. That's the sign it's growth. That's the sign it's leading somewhere different from where they've already been. Life loves to introduce opportunities through the back door. A random conversation with a stranger, a chance meeting, a message from someone they haven't thought about in years, a job offer from a place they didn't expect, a skill they learned for fun suddenly becoming their new career. They call it coincidence. Life calls it alignment. Life calls it timing. Life calls it redirection. But because it doesn't match their well-polished plan, they hesitate, they question, they doubt. They think something this unexpected couldn't possibly be for them. What they don't see is that the unfamiliar is often a doorway disguised as discomfort. The uneasiness they feel isn't danger, it's expansion. It's the feeling of stepping into a space bigger than the one they've been limiting themselves to. They think they're not ready, not qualified, not the right fit. But the truth is, the unfamiliar invites them to become more than they are right now. It stretches them, sharpens them, awakens parts of them that routine has been smothering for years. People forget how adaptable they are, how quickly they can learn when the situation demands it, how capable they become when they step into something that challenges them. They underestimate their resilience, their intelligence, their instincts. And because of that, they underestimate the opportunities life sends them. They assume it's safer to stick to what they know, but what they know is often the very thing keeping them small. The unfamiliar is not the enemy. It's the invitation. And here's the interesting part. People don't discover who they are by repeating what they already know. They discover who they are by stepping into something new, by taking risks, by trying something that scares them, by letting themselves explore paths that don't look anything like the future they once imagined. And sometimes the next job isn't familiar at all. Sometimes it's in a field they never considered, a skill they never valued, a place they never looked. Sometimes it's so unexpected it almost feels like a joke. But life has a sense of humor like that. Maybe the next opportunity won't look like anything you planned. Maybe it'll surprise you, confuse you, challenge you, pull you somewhere unfamiliar. And maybe that unfamiliar place is exactly where you were always meant to rise.